Hey, it's Soul, and welcome back to Warcraft Weekly, the show with a lack of Warcraft this week. So we were on break last week, although Bob thought that he was covering for me. He set up a stage behind me and everything, and he produced a whole show. He just doesn't quite know he didn't really upload it to the channel.
Diablo Immortal, haha, more like Diablo ethically wrong, ha 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 ha.
Whatever the case, I'm glad that you're here, so sometime throughout this video, hit the like button and subscribe and hit the bell thing. And this week in Dragonflight news, there ain't nothing. Nothing, unless there's a last minute drop like a pre-order or a talent tree preview or something, and so we can move on to the static cut right now. See? Nothing! Fortunately, Dragonflight is not the only WoW game in town, nor is it the only game in the Blizzard library, so we're going to take a glance at what else Blizzard has been up to this week. This week, the hype for Wrath of the Lich King Classic is building up thanks to a few updates. I've given this not very much coverage at all, because most of the audience here is not all that interested in that. They're more interested in the modern game, but I am excited. Seriously, I'm really excited for this release, but I'm not going to kid myself. I'm like 102% sure that I won't be playing Wrath Classic, but I am absolutely hyped for people who are, because just like Vanilla and Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King was overall a fun and memorable experience, and it's going to be great to see people capture or recapture that experience. Now, on the other side of things, you bet your ass the nostalgia is going to be like more than a bit compromised by WoW's very experienced community, who's going to wipe the floor with all the content regardless of what tweaks the WoW Classic team does, and they are doing things. If you haven't heard already, so far the Dungeon Finder tool that was introduced later in the original expansion apparently won't be a thing at all during Wrath Classic. That's because they're putting the time in to finally give us aerial combat, is what I'd like to say, but it's not. But some people are holding out hope. For those of you who experienced the transition from WoW Classic to Burning Crusade Classic, expect more of the same, but with a twist. Before, Classic realms were connected together, where on some realms your character had a last name, and it happened to be the realm that your character was made on. This time around though, many low-pop Burning Crusade realms will be retired, and characters will be automatically moved to specific destination servers, so they're actually closing realms. This is going to happen in August, but players can use free character transfers to move them sooner if they want to. So unlike before, characters who are moved, they won't be able to keep their names in case someone on the destination realm that they're automatically moved to already has that name. Guilds and guild banks won't be transferred either during this process. So if you care about where your character goes, I suggest checking the list here on the side or wherever to see if you're going to be affected and start planning for August. But there's more. Finally, after a lot of feedback and complaints, Wrath Classic is going to launch with a round of fresh realms, where players who manage to get into these servers can only make fresh level 1 characters. So there's no boosts, no character transfers, no nothing. According to their announcement, just like from Classic to BC Classic, there's going to be a character migration copy thingamajigger for people who want to take their current characters from Burning Crusade to Wrath, and that's no big deal. But when the Wrath pre-patch is deployed, a round of fresh servers will also launch, giving players time, which last time was about 2 weeks, to make their new characters or to fulfill the requirements to make a Death Knight when Wrath finally launches. Now, in case you're wondering, these servers will have the AQ gates already open, so there's going to be no new Scarab Lords from these realms. Keeping these realms isolated from others will last for a period no fewer than 90 days, and depending on how things go, this could last indefinitely. The WoW Classic team made it clear that they're taking a wait-and-see approach on how long do they want to isolate these fresh start realms from the others, as there's been a pretty loud outcry from fans that they prefer the fresh start experience, or they at least want to try it out. After all, if you look at the state of current realms, they're kind of muddied up by these more mature economies. Some would say they're compromised because of faction imbalances and the continued presence of bots, injecting like excess gold and resources into the economy. Of course, when populations do start to dip, they'll probably be tempted to open things up, so players will have a little bit more agency over the health of realms. But now, I'd like to hear from you. Are you going to dive into Wrath Classic, fresh or not fresh? And there are no wrong answers, and we can play whatever the heck thing we want, alright? So share your thoughts down in the comments. And now for some Diablo Immortal news. According to some released numbers from GamesIndustry.biz and the Diablo Immortal team itself, we can conclude that, since launch, players on average spent a massive $2.40 on Diablo Immortal. Now, free-to-play revenue numbers are not easy to write down, and I admit that this calculation is super misleading because it hardly tells the whole story, and the story is only just beginning. But this is based on an infographic recently posted by Diablo Immortal's social media team, with all the fun numbers including 10 million players who installed the game. Now this is a fraction of the over 30 million players who pre-registered for the game. Meanwhile, GamesIndustry.biz tracked about $24 million spent on the game via microtransactions in the first 14 days of the game's launch, which gives us this sort of snapshot, and I hope that I'm being fair here. Within these 14 days, between the number of players who interacted with the game in any capacity, whether it's installing the game, completing and then uninstalling, maybe casually playing it long term, or whaling the living crap out of it, $2.40 was spent per player. Even if we only said that half of the people who installed it even ran it for more than a few minutes, that's still like $5 a player within this 14-day period. Obviously, Diablo Immortal generated revenue, but it's hardly an indication of success. The real question when it comes to these games is going to be whether the cost of its future content rollouts are going to be enough to get people spending any amount of money. From my experience playing mobile games, the Diablo model is a bit of a different scheme compared to other free-to-play models. Like this game, Diablo Immortal, it tries to tempt me to roll for more chances at loot by buying more of these chances because envy. Other more confrontational PvP games like Clash of Clans will tell you, oh no, your base has been wiped out, but you can pay me in order to get back into the fight unless you'd rather wait 4 to 5 days like the other poor people. Are you a gamer or are you a bitch? This week, another Diablo 4 news update dropped, and here are the highlights. The Necromancer will be the 5th and final class for Diablo 4's initial launch. Multiple developers have come out to reassure players that this next big entry into the series will be a more traditional buy-to-play, supported by cosmetic purchases and the occasional expansion pack, which has traditionally included an additional act and maybe a class. So anyone missing out on the likes of the Witch Doctor or the Crusader, who knows, maybe we'll see something down the line. The game's looking pretty good so far, with a planned 2023 release, finally. This will mean that it'll have been 11 years since a mainline Diablo series game has released. Now, to the team's credit, Diablo 3 has been maintained since its launch, from changing significantly with Reaper of Souls to its many seasons, adding layer after layer of character growth with no additional cost to these seasonal updates. Meanwhile, Overwatch 2 had a pretty big week as well, complete with announcements and reveals. Highlights include a pretty badass new character, the Junker Queen, who swings an axe and uses... it's something that I call junk force, alright? She uses like this magnetic thing to call forth only things that she wants, which is of course her axe, but also can counter someone else's junk force. It's a fun cinematic. It's very over the top, it's very Overwatch. The Overwatch 2 closed beta is coming in just a few weeks, and it's going to slowly roll out. It first begins June 28th for a small group of players, but more specifically, it's going to be for like the big content creators and streamers and the professionals, along with people who buy into an Overwatch 2 launch bundle. It's expected to be open for everyone by July 14th, so your patience, I guess, will be rewarded. In case you haven't heard already, the PvP side of Overwatch 2 is going to be free to play. The launch bundle that I mentioned earlier gets you in on some currency stuff and the fancy schmancy premium battle pass scheme that unlocks like special cosmetics and other goodies that aren't player power. Overwatch 2 is moving away from loot boxes in favor of just buying what you want by going down the battle pass track and to buy virtual currency, which can then be used directly to buy stuff. Details are pretty scarce on that front, but basically if all you care about is pew pew pew, then it'll feel especially good to see yourself like ultimate a whole team of shiny looking characters in the play of the day. But leave it to the leadership over in Activision Blizzard to throw a wet towel over what's been a pretty solid week of news and updates. In a regular government filing, the company reported no evidence of systemic harassment within the company. I don't buy it, but that's what they said, alright? Also in this report, an outside investigator determined that the amount of harassment and misconduct was, quote, comparatively low for a company of Activision Blizzard size, which I choose to believe. Now, allow this corporate bootlicker to share why. I believe all of the allegations that have been made public. I believe all the damage that has been done. I also believe that sexism and sexual misconduct in the industry is a massive problem in this and pretty much every other industry. This document just tries to hide behind that generalization and make Activision Blizzard seem normal, that compared to other companies, oh, we're not all that bad, when in fact, it's always bad in every situation, no matter where it is. Like, just ask the accusers. Okay, actually don't. That's not the takeaway here. And I don't even have a good segue for this one, so that's the show. And roll the raid clip. I'm tripping, I don't see the beam.
Fuck.
Defensive.
It's
It's invisible.
Oh fuck! I
Oh.
found it.
I don't see it either.
I
Shit.
I see it.
Oh yeah,
That's
it's
cool.
the bug.
I see it.
Like many, my team encountered a really nasty Halandris bug during our reclear this week, where the old giant planet cracker beam could only be seen from a very weird camera angle. In typical gamer fashion, we whined about it for a while before we just dealt with it and killed it anyway. And I'm proud of the team for that. I'm not going to tell it to their faces, but it is awesome that they managed to adapt to a sudden thing happening to them. I consider it one of those gamer moments because not every team has the temperament to work through bugs, especially in situations like raids where it's kind of hard to commit to a certain routine around killing a boss, and an invisible death ray tends to mess with that routine. Otherwise, my birthday week has been pretty chill. Thanks for the birthday wishes, by the way. I even followed my own advice and I got around to completing all of the flawless Torghast runs, putting me one step closer to that back from the Beyond achievement. Thankfully, there's gonna be plenty to do while we wait for Dragonflight. This week I've been bringing up like vague discussion topics on the possible future of Dragonflight, and data miners and other content creators are taking the smallest breadcrumbs and wondering, what to make of this morsel of data. Speaking for me though, we've got a ton of Blizzard news this week, a ton of Blizzard and other gaming news this month, this year even, so there's no shortage of something to be excited over. It's just that, I want me some Dragonflight and all the little indicators that put us on track to when we expect WoW's next expansion to come out at a certain time. It's been scarce, with no pre-order and another season of Shadowlands on the way. The internal alpha seems to be underway, but after seeing that first round of talents, boy, I'm hungry for more. But how are you folks handling it? What are you playing, or watching, or just doing for fun these days? Share your things to do in a comment below. Now let's give thanks to the folks that keep this channel going, like our super awesome Twitch subscribers and our patrons, including L0. I'm pretty sure that translates to the zero. Thanks for joining the family. Obviously, this weekly was WoW Light, but I hope you enjoyed yourself anyway. So please hit the like button, subscribe for more content, and I will see you next time. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.